What is up, YouTube? This is Dave with D&E Performance. We're going to change up the content a little bit. We're going to talk 4-cylinder. We're going to talk Honda. We're going to talk VTEC. We're going to talk some stuff that I'm working on right now. As you can see, back there is a torn apart 4-door 04 Honda Civic that had a misfire, and I purchased it to do a car flip, and so I decided I would fix the misfire, and the misfire wasn't a misfire. It was somebody put the wrong, somebody installed the timing belt incorrectly, actually 180 degrees out, and we ended up kissing the piston. So I get to tear the motor apart and replace it with a new one, and in the process I didn't want to do a motor build. I just wanted to swap a JDM in. Went to a place, picked up a JDM. First JDM was no good. Took it back. He gave me another one. That one was not even, it was a little bit better shape. I was able to use the head off of that one. So, yeah, I'm in the middle of this. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking the original motor out of it, discarding the head because it had, 4 bent valves or something, because whatever mechanic decided to put the timing belt on didn't want to use the factory stuff. Instead he used the spring out of his garage to put the tensioner on. Not going to go into detail on that one, but anyway, so here's the JDM block. And I got this thing, and this is the second one, and I took the dingleberry and honed it out. I wasn't too happy with the results, so I ended up using the block that was in there to do the honing. Here is the crankshaft. There's the old crankshaft of the JDM one that I had to do, let's say, a rough polish on it just to try to see if it would come out. Wasn't happy with that either. So I'm just going to go ahead and do which this one will clean up very nicely. I know that for a fact. Just looking at it, comparing it from this crankshaft to the other crankshaft. By the way, I didn't know if I mentioned this. This is Honda's 1.7 liter single cam, and this model's a non-VTEC, and I picked up a VTEC motor. I pretty much broke down the head already, took the valves out, lapped them in, cleaned up all the garbage that was, that had plagued this motor from the previous owner. Replaced the valve stem seals and a couple other things. Here's the girdle that bolts the crankshaft into the block. This is off of the JDM motor. I think I'm going to go ahead and use the one that's off of the original block, because I don't know where that motor's been or where they got it. I don't know if it fell off, the container fell off the ship when it was being shipped over here. I'm just done with this whole bottom end on this block. There's a couple of things I'm going to use. This is the aftermarket pistons. I should show you the pistons that actually came out of it. But you can see these pistons here. I'm still waiting to get them pressed on. I got to go to the machine shop, get these pressed on. But these pistons here, they have oil drain backs on them. And this is kind of the normal for stuff that's in, see the old drain back holes right there. This is kind of the normal for anything that's early 2000, is that for whatever reason, drill the oil drain back holes or not create enough oil drain back. And so you have oil consumption, you have ring lands that are locked up, and you know, whatnot. Here's the block that I decided I'm going to use, and this one cleaned up quite nicely. The car, by the way, has 206,000 miles, so that's pretty impressive for this motor. That means somebody was maintaining the car, because for me to just take a dingleberry and then they just come out, you know, the cylinders just come out. This is 20 strokes. That's all I needed on the car, and they maintained it, and then they decided to upgrade to a better model or whatever the case may be. Traded it in. The dealership sold it on auction. That person purchased it from the auction. Car needed to go in for its 200,000 mile maintenance. Took it to the mechanic. Mechanic didn't know what he's doing. I mean, because all honesty, when I tore the motor apart, there's really nothing wrong with this motor. I mean, the bearings look good, everything looked good, crankshaft looked good, but unfortunately, the guy that did the timing belt didn't know what he was doing. Maybe Joe Schmo that bought the car did the timing belt. I don't know. But anyways, I just thought I would just touch base on anybody out there that's trying to do anything to these motors as far as performance. Don't do it. Just don't. Just leave it alone. It's not the motor that you want to, put boost to, or the motor you want to do upgrades. I mean, you could do an exhaust upgrade to the car and maybe an intake, and that's in. And then here's the rod. I mean, I really don't think that these rods can handle a whole lot of boost. I mean, this is a stock 1.7 rod. The only way that I think you would be able to handle, some boost on this is if maybe you upgraded to something that was, you would have to buy an aftermarket rod. You'd have to do aftermarket rod, aftermarket piston. And at that point, upgraded rods, upgraded pistons on this motor, you might as well just swap over to a K. You might as well just do a K swap. Honestly, the stock K, by the time you get all the upgrades and all the stuff, to boost this motor and make it, what are you going to get out of it? 300, maybe 350 horsepower, which, I mean, in a light car, yeah, it's a lot of horsepower, but why waste your time when you can just swap a K over? You're gonna pay about the same amount. I mean, honestly, you're probably gonna pay the same amount of money to upgrade this motor, put a turbo system on it, and then you still got clutch, you still got transmission that you don't know it's gonna hold out 7. And another thing too on these heads is it's got all this EGR passageway crap on here. I mean, it just goes on and on with these motors. It's just, I mean, it's cool if you just want to do like a couple of, like I said, just a couple of minor upgrades. This is the EGR valve or the EGR canister that comes off of this thing. Here's the this is the VTEC solenoid that came off of the other JDM motor that I bought that's junk. Yeah, so that's my advice to anybody that's, trying to add power to this motor. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth your money. If you want the power, then just go straight K. Case I had the time to sit here and figure this stuff out, because honestly, this would be just a cool car to swap a K into. you know, I did a 1.6 liter in an EF, and that motor was a good motor. It was a really good motor. The head was really good. It was just old Honda technology, and I swapped over to, I took a non-VTEC and made it VTEC, and I had an aftermarket ECU, aftermarket harness, and it just worked flawlessly. The car, I drove that car every day. It was a daily driver, and it's just a fun little car that I can beat the crap out of. Going from the older stuff to this newer stuff, and then seeing the K stuff, and this is kind of in between the older and the K stuff, and this just stuff is just, it's just not there. I feel like it's just not there for performance. It just wouldn't be worth it. I mean, if you were just the price of this compared to the price of a 1.7 to the K series, you get more in displacement on the K too. You can go all the way up to 2.4 liter. I'm not saying you can't make these motors, you know, powerful. I'm just saying for a guy looking to, you know, have a fun, zippy little car, I just wouldn't waste my time with this motor. I would just go straight to a K swap. If you want a fun, zippy car that has a lot of power, you don't have to worry about issues or it falling short on anything, and the platform that's going to really, you're going to be able to build on. I mean, because a K can take, in stock form, can take, you know, it's kind of like the LS, where an LS can take like 1,000 horsepower compared, you know, same thing with the K. You can take K all the way up to 6 before you have to actually start doing rod and piston modifications to push it to its limits. But as far as doing any type of upgrades to this 1.7, I advise anybody, if you're using a commuter and that's all it is, just stick with it. That's all you need it for. Just put it back to stock and leave it alone. This is Dave with D&E Performance. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we will see you on the flip.